Union has just concluded here in the capital of Mauritania, and it was quite an engaging one, touching on various issues and also touching on the main theme of this year's conference, which is the fight against corruption. Now, President Paul Kagame, the chairperson of the African Union, when speaking, spoke about the prudence and the transparency that has been involved in the budgeting of next year's budget, saying it is going to be 12% lower than this year's budget, and indeed saying that because of that, the operations of peacekeeping operations on the continent this time will be fully funded, and saying for him the reforms at the African Union in terms of budgeting, in terms of how the African Union carries itself, are starting to pay out. And so he says he sees the continent being able to become self-dependent very soon, and for the people of the continent to be able to gain back their dignity. But he also spoke about terrorism and sent messages of condolences and condemned the attacks that have happened in Mali, in Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and saying that the continent stands with these people, including the people of Nigeria, and saying that it will offer any kind of support that is needed to help in the fight against corruption. Now, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, who, by the way, happens to be the former Foreign Affairs Minister of Nigeria, also was here, and she spoke about the need for the continent to be all-inclusive, to have to look at the 50-50 representation of women and girls, and especially in areas of political power, to ensure that women are well represented. But she said that the African Union is also engaged in the issue of conflict in the Sahel region, and said that the UN, together with the African Union, will be making trips around areas that are affected by conflict, including the South Sudan, Chad, and the Central African Republic, just to see what support the United Nations can offer. Chairman of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, while addressing the conference, reminded the continent that they are just months away from 2020, their own goal that they set for themselves, the target that the continent set itself to silence the guns. Now, he is saying that a lot of countries on the continent still remain in conflict, and he reminded the leaders in these countries that they have a responsibility to their people to continue engaging and having dialogue to ensure that the guns are silenced even sooner than 2020. He pointed out to the leaders of South Sudan and said that they have a responsibility and they will be held accountable for the continuing violence in the country. He held the agreement that was signed in Khartoum on Wednesday last week and said it is now time for the two leaders, Salva Kiir, the president of South Sudan, and Dr. Riek Machar, the rebel leader who has been sheltered in South Africa for the longest time, to come together and see to it that South Sudan finally is a country that can start gaining the benefits and the fruits of the independence that they got just the other day in 2011. Now, later this afternoon, we expect that President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa will sign the agreement for the establishment of the African Free Continental Trade Area. He says earlier this afternoon we spoke to Trade Minister Rob Davis, who said that South Africa will be in support of multilateralism even as the rest of the world starts to go towards protectionism and unilateralism. Now, we will keep you updated from here on issues that will come up later in the day. The conference will come to a close tomorrow.
That's Sarah Kimani with an update there from the African Union Summit happening there.